Welcome to my channel Health for You. What foods to eat to conceive a girl? Are you interested to find out how your diet can drastically increase your chances to conceive a girl? Did you know that you can greatly increase the odds of getting pregnant with a baby girl by eating certain foods? Well, keep on listening this video to find out. What foods to eat to conceive a girl? Some researchers have discovered that one of the most powerful factors that affect the human sex ratios is represented by the diet. More precisely, it has been noticed that a certain kind of diet seems to favor the conception of girls, while the occurrence of boys seem to be favored by another type of diet. This video will present you essential details about the best diet to conceive a girl. Here is what you will find out by listening this post. The main features of this dietary method, useful advice concerning this famous technique of gender selection, a brief history of it, what food items are recommended for conceiving a baby girl, pros and cons regarding this strategy. 8 things to know about the diet for conceiving a girl. There are several aspects regarding this dietary method of human sex selection that you ought to know. First of all, there are multiple diets that are supposed to help you conceive a female baby. All these diets having the same main idea which will be presented in this video. Secondly, this gender selection method is not able to guarantee you the sex of your future child. Its success rate is about 70 to 80%. When you are thinking on how to conceive a girl, diet method can only raise your odds of having a baby girl. Thirdly, this technique can't promise that by following its diet, the woman will even get pregnant at all with any kind of baby, boy or a girl. Fourthly, you ought to ask your medical doctor for advice prior to commencing to follow this diet. Throughout the period of going on this diet, having a nutritionist, physician, or gynecologist monitoring your health status is the best thing you can do. Fifthly, it's essential to know not only the benefits but also the drawbacks of this diet, especially the contraindications and the potential side effects of this diet for conceiving a girl. For example, high blood pressure, excess of calcium in the blood, and the heart problems are some of the medical conditions that must stop the person from going on this diet. Moreover, this diet is pretty unbalanced and therefore it might generate some illness such as excess of calcium in the blood, nervousness, etc. This is why it's essential to avoid following an extreme diet, especially when you are expecting to get pregnant. Sixthly, the diet recommended by the sex selection strategy, for example, the diet to conceive a girl, is actually a pre-pregnancy diet. That a diet which should be followed only before becoming pregnant, because the fetal sex can be controlled only prior to the moment when that fetus is conceived. After the woman becomes pregnant, she must quit following this diet even if the gender of her fetus is not the desired one, because it can't be changed after the conception moment. It's important to know that this diet must also be discontinued after having been followed for 2 or 3 months without becoming pregnant. The 7th important thing that ought to be known by the person trying to conceive a girl is that the future father should also follow this diet. Just like his partner, the future mother, the physiological factor is the rationale behind this advice. The eighth essential aspect related to this dietary method of gender selection is actually a warning. Neither the woman nor the parents nor the partners should go on this diet for a long period of time because they might get sick. What foods to eat to conceive a girl? The principal idea of this dietary strategy of sex selection is very simple, and it consists in modifying the proportion of four minerals in a one diet. These four essential minerals actually tell you what to eat to conceive a girl. Four minerals of the diet method that is meant to help the woman to predetermine the gender of their future baby are these: calcium, magnesium, sodium, potassium. The first two of them, calcium and magnesium, are the girl minerals. They are recommended for conceiving a female offspring. More precisely, the woman aiming for baby girls should increase their intake of these two girl minerals and limit or decrease their intake of the other two minerals, sodium and potassium, which are the boy minerals. That is, they are recommended for conceiving a male child. The persons into the diet to conceive a girl ought to know that the future mother, and also for physiological purpose their partners, should eat food items rich in calcium and magnesium and poor in potassium and sodium. The foodstuffs that are famous for containing high levels of calcium and magnesium are the dietary products, cheese, milk, butter, etc. There are also some fruits, cereals and vegetables such as nuts, beans. They are rich in these two girl minerals. Tips on how to have a baby girl naturally. Almost every person that intends to have babies would like to be able to control the gender of their future children. Some of these future parents would like to have girls, but they don't know how to do that. This video has been created especially for coming to the aid of these persons, since it deals with the main tips on how to have a baby girl. So if you are interested in having a female child, be with me for a couple of minutes. First of all, I want to present the answer to the first three questions that occur to the women and men interested in human gender selection. When to conceive a girl? Many people intuit that a person's gender is influenced by the period or even the moment when that person was conceived. Some researchers confirm this theory and provide an interesting method that tells the couples when they should conceive a child in order to have a baby with the gender that is preferred by that couple. This method's name is Scheitel's method, and it reveals how to have a baby girl by scheduling the sexual intercourse. More precisely, the couples who propose is to have a daughter ought to have sex about 3 days before ovulation. How to have a baby girl naturally? Besides the Scheitel's method, there is another sex selection method that offers an answer to the question when to conceive a female offspring. This method is the Chinese gender calendar method, an ancient astrological technique used in China since the 13th century, which determines, using a table representing the Chinese gender chart, the time intervals when a baby of the desired gender is more likely to be conceived by a woman. More precisely, for having a baby girl, the woman must try to conceive her child in the periods indicated by the Chinese gender table. To sum up, there are only two strategies of sex selection, both of which are natural methods that suggest the time when an offspring of the wished for gender has the biggest chances to be conceived. These methods Let's call them time methods, are shuttles and Chinese gender calendar. What to eat to have a baby girl? And other question that is searched very often related to gender selection is what foods are recommended for conceiving a female child. There is only one method that answers to this question, the diet method, which show how to have a baby girl naturally by indicating the food items that the future mother must consume, most often that those rich in calcium and magnesium like the dairy products, and also the foodstuffs that must be avoided, that is the salted foods, more precisely those high in sodium and potassium such as bread, meat and pastries. It's vital to know that the diet method for gender predetermination is contraindicated to the persons having high blood pressure, heart problems, and excessive amount of calcium in the blood and the other medical conditions. How to conceive a baby girl? The first question that occurs to the couples aiming for a daughter is how can I have a baby girl? This is a very general question, unlike the two aforementioned questions, the ones referring to the conception period and to the advised diet. Answers for this global question are provided by every technique of gender selection, natural or not. More precisely, not only the natural strategies, as you may have noticed, the three aforementioned sex selection methods, shuttles, Chinese gender calendar, and diet, are all natural, but also the unnatural, that is the scientific method, can help the couples have baby girls. How to have a girl baby scientific method. The huge number of women who say or think, if I want to have a baby girl, ought to know details about only the natural method of gender predetermination, but also about the scientific ones, which are actually artificial strategies that have higher success rates than the accuracy rates of the natural methods. Only one sex selection method is able to ensure, with the success rate of 100% if no errors occur, that the fetal sex, that is the gender of a future child, is the one that is wished for. This method is a scientific one and it's called PGD with IVF. If you want to know how to have a baby girl, you ought to be aware of the way the scientific method works. In a first phase, each of these methods collects sperm samples from the future father. PGD also collects eggs from the future mother. In the second phase, the scientific methods use a specialized medical laboratory that is equipped with the high-tech apparatus for preparing the necessary material for the future baby. The PGD method creates the suitable embryos using in vitro fertilization, while the methods Microsort and Arisen select the necessary enriched sperm subpopulations. And the third, which is also the last phase, the material obtained in the lab is introduced in the woman's uterus using artificial insemination.